the best striker on the planet. Yeah, I agree. It has to be.
But Pereira doesn't just have freaky power. He also picks his shots wisely.
Just calculated, smart, patient, and setting everything up, and that's what makes this beautiful. The way he stays so calm, even when he gets hit, his face doesn't change. He sets up everything.
This kickboxing monster has the scariest power in all weight divisions.
Alex Pereira is a one-in-a-million kind of athlete. A man who has already achieved two-weight world champion status in two different combat sports, boasting a skill set that is unrivaled in terms of MMA striking. His roots in Brazil are as humble as they come. Poatan was not a rich man growing up, and in fact, he was an alcoholic who was drowning in his own despair before the fight game gave him a reason to make a positive change. And when he found his way into that kickboxing gym, it forever changed the course of not only his life, but the history of combat sports as a whole. Here are the most violent KOs in the career of Alex Pereira. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to let us know by giving it a like and hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss any future uploads. And without further ado, let's get into it. Dustin Jacoby. Israel Adesanya wasn't the only future MMA fighter that Alex Pereira was adding to his highlight reel during his days as a kickboxer. Dustin Jacoby was also fighting in glory before he too joined the UFC. And in this early clip, you can really see just how sharp Pereira was looking. His speed was on point. His accuracy was unquestionable, and when he finally found his opening, that signature left hook shot put Jacoby down in an instant. A classic moment of Poatan violence. Israel Adesanya. This was a big one. The moment that truly kicked one of the great combat sports rivalries into gear. We didn't know it yet, but in this, the second fight between Pereira and Israel Adesanya, the seeds were being planted for a truly special competitive dynamic. But even if you strip away the context, this was a mean left hook from Pereira, a shot that ruined all of Izzy's positive momentum in this fight. Those who haven't watched the bout in full might not know this, but Israel was doing pretty damn well at first. But when you're fighting a guy like Pereira, he doesn't need a big opening to totally change a bout's momentum. And that's what we saw play out here. Yusri Belgari. But the Alex Pereira story is not all about that legendary left hand. No, his prowess with the right is sometimes understated, which it really shouldn't be, because his ability to put people out with his backhand is just as real. And when he took on Yusri Belgari, Poatan found home with his right early, absolutely demolishing Belgari's chin with a hammering right that caught him as cleanly as can be. And while the ref gave him every chance to get back to his feet, we have no idea why he did. This dude was done and did not need to spend any more time in the ring with Pereira. Jason Wilness. Outside of the obvious one, his win over Izzy, Pereira's violent finish of Jason Wilness might be his next best KO in terms of its fame. After getting knocked down by Poatan, Wilness was in a tough spot. The ideal game plan after sustaining a knockdown like that would have been to keep his distance and try to avoid taking any more immediate damage. But unfortunately for him, when Pereira smells blood, you're going to have a hard time keeping him away. And sure enough, Pereira immediately found home for a flying knee as soon as the bout restarted, catching Wilness as cleanly as can be to put him down once and for all. A brutal finish and a standout within Pereira's highlight reel. Ertugrul Bayrak. And for the final KO from Pereira's kickboxing career, you're not going to see a more clear example of this man's power than when he took on Ertugrul Bayrak. It was getting to the point where it looked like every shot Poatan landed was having an effect. But man, this buzzer-beating knockout was as clean as it gets. A picture-perfect hook put Bayrak down. And yeah, you're beginning to see a pattern here. Pereira tends to KO them clean, right? This knockout led to Poatan fighting a few more times in kickboxing, with varying degrees of success. But upon noticing the fame and fortune that his old rival Israel Adesanya was having in mixed martial arts, Poatan set himself down a new path, deciding to forego his kickboxing roots and commit himself to a new sport entirely. Marcelo Cruz. Sporting a more rugged look, this MMA newcomer managed to get his first KO in MMA since leaving kickboxing by totally destroying Marcelo Cruz. As soon as that initial right hand landed, it was clear that this fight was over. In fact, the referee probably should have stopped this one a little sooner. This was no ordinary striker, and the reality of just how good Pereira would be in 4-ounce gloves was really starting to set in. Only time would tell whether Poatan could replicate his success from the ring in this new home, the cage. Thomas Powell. If you're looking for the KO that made Dana White and the UFC sit up and take notice, this was it. Facing off against Thomas Powell in the regional promotion LFA, Pereira achieved his first viral knockout in the US with this huge left hook finish. It wasn't clear just how far Poatan could go in these very new and untested waters, but his knack for putting fighters out cold was definitely not in doubt. And so, with an eye on potentially pushing him into a title rematch with Adesanya, the UFC decided to take a gamble and signed Pereira, in spite of his clear inexperience. This gamble, as it turned out, would pay off in more ways than they could have ever realized. Andreas Michailidis. Pereira's first big test on the UFC stage saw him get a spot on a major pay-per-view undercard, taking on Andreas Michailidis. At this point, most fans knew who he was, but the majority of us were doubtful about his ability to get the job done at the highest level. Michailidis is not a high-level fighter, but the first round here gave us a good chance to take a closer look at Pereira and how he looked in an MMA cage. The second round, however, showcased Poatan putting his game plan into motion. And after lulling Andreas into a false sense of security, he leapt forth with the perfect flying knee, thrilling the crowd and getting another highlight reel finish. Sean Strickland. The first major test of Alex Pereira's UFC career came when the promotion decided to match him up with the number 6 ranked future champion, Sean Strickland. Now, of course, this win would eventually age very well, considering that Strickland would go on to rise up and win UFC gold. But at the time, this was a fight that was practically set up for Alex to shine. The reason? Well, Strickland was the only middleweight on the roster who was too stubborn to try and wrestle Poatan. And sure enough, on fight night, he lived up to his billing, showing himself to be totally determined to stand and bang with one of the most lethal kickboxers on the planet. And yeah, once Pereira got his range, things did not go well for Sean. Poatan found home for his trademark left, and that was all she wrote. Israel Adesanya. When Poatan finally got his title shot, it was a truly crazy moment. Not only had he managed to follow his rival into another sport with a fraction of Adesanya's experience, but he was actually doing pretty well early on. Adesanya was definitely winning the fight by the time the 5th round came, but we were seeing more of Poatan's MMA skill set than ever before. And against all odds, he was doing pretty well. But with the 5th round coming to a close and the scorecards going against him, Pereira somehow found a way to stun his rival in one of the final exchanges. All of a sudden, Adesanya was in trouble, and Pereira was advancing. Eventually, the refs saw enough to stop it, maybe a little early, but we all knew which way the fight was going. A new UFC champ was crowned, and a truly unlikely one at that. Yuri Prochazka. After losing to Izzy in their MMA rematch and successfully beating the former 205-pound champ Jan Blachowicz in his divisional debut upon moving up in weight, the UFC decided to set up an all-action fight for the vacant light heavyweight title, pairing up Poatan with the great Yuri Prochazka. It was in this fight that we saw the most measured and confident version of Alex yet. He worked Yuri's legs from the get-go, applying constant leg kicks before catching him coming in the 2nd round. From there, it was just a matter of firing vicious elbows down on the former champ, leading the ref to jump in and call the bout. Again, maybe it was a little early, but a new double champ was crowned, probably the most unlikely double champ of all. The tale of Alex Pereira's combat sports conquest is a truly wild one. Of that, there can be little doubt. If you enjoyed these battles as much as we like compiling them, please subscribe and hit the like button. Trust us, you'll want to know about all the crazy stuff that's going to happen next.